We need to learn good online principles, good online hygiene, good online etiquette. What is good online etiquette? Because not all online relationships are necessarily a bad thing. It's just that that is the way that is a lot easier for people to hide and you don't really know who they are. Good morning, everyone. I'm Destiny Dawn, and this is the Destiny Dawn Show. Today, we're talking about preventing human trafficking. How do you prevent human trafficking? Well, I think the very first thing that we must do is to create awareness. People have to know that it's happening. Whenever my daughter left home, I didn't even know that something like this could happen. I didn't know it was possible. I didn't even know that it existed. And there are many different ways that human trafficking happens, and mine is just one scenario, just one way. There's a lot of different ways that it happens. But I would venture to say that more often than not, it is, now that we have the internet, an online relationship is probably 98% of the ways that it happens. And children can be, or young adults, they can be talking to someone in an online relationship thinking that it is mutually beneficial, thinking that they have found love, someone that cares about them, and they go to meet them, and the next thing you know, someone has pulled up outside the front door, and they get in their vehicle and they drive them across the country, and they start using them for services, for sex. And that person, your child, had no idea, no intention of that, had no idea that that's what was going to happen. And then they're very embarrassed that they were deceived like that. There's a whole process. It's a business that these people do, and we need to be aware that it is happening, that it's happening more and more, and to be aware of the ways that it happens. We need to be aware of the predators. I did a video on warning signs of predators. We need to, so that's the second point. The second point is education. We need to educate. I talk about education, not condemnation. They're embarrassed about it, that they did it, but they need healing, and they need to be educated. The ones that have been through that, they need to be, brought back and loved and educated on, have therapy for it. But the ones that haven't yet left, but they are in an online relationship, or they are talking to people online, we need to learn good online principles, good online hygiene, good online etiquette. What is good online etiquette? Because not all online relationships are necessarily a bad thing. It's just that that is the way that is a lot easier for people to hide and you don't really know who they are. The fact, it's just a fact that it is easier to be someone that, to portray yourself as someone that you're not whenever you're not in person with the person. If you're just standing behind a camera, it's very easy to portray yourself as someone else, and that's why it's more risky. But not all online relationships have to be a bad thing, but it is highly risky to meet someone that you've only been talking to online, because this is a huge business and people are getting trafficked more and more and more. Now, with education, we need to teach young people how to act online, what to look for, what are the signs, how do predators act, what do they say, why do they say it, how do they say it. All of these things will be very important. And I only have one little piece, just what happened in our story that I wrote a book about. I only have one little piece of it. I just have pieces. Now, if my daughter ever comes back and she tells her side, that will be a wealth of information. That will be a wealth. I believe that there's a lot that she can teach us and that she can tell us about how she was, what she was thinking and how she got deceived and pulled into it. And just what was on her mind and why she did what she did or thought how she thought. There's just a lot of information there that I don't have. And I'm sure there are a lot of other people out there who have their story to tell. That's the other thing, is to tell your story, because that is how we learn from each other. And we put all these stories together and we can see how these tactics and these strategies that these predators use, and we can teach that, we can educate on that. So telling your story is huge, but you have to get past the embarrassment of it. And I urge you, the quicker you can get past the embarrassment of it and start telling your story, the more you can help other people so that this doesn't happen to them. And you don't have to be embarrassed about being deceived. We've all been deceived in one way or another, even if it's self-deception. We can deceive ourselves. So, I hope that you have people around you that can just love you and just help you to understand how it happened and not condemn you for it happening to you. Because we've all made mistakes, no matter what kind of mistake it is. We've all been foolish. We've all been young. We've all been immature at some point in our lives. That's how you learn. So the quicker that you can surround yourself with people that are going to help you move forward, then you can tell your story. And that's going to be huge for helping us fight this and prevent this from happening to other people. On the Hands of Justice Human Trafficking Agency website that I am a supporter of, I donate proceeds from the sale of my book to them. And one thing that they said was very discouraging and disappointing to know is that 1% to 2% of people that are in human trafficking are not, only 1% to 2% of them are ever rescued out of it, and 0.1% of those of the predators are ever prosecuted. So we really need to do a really good job of prevention, because it sounds like not a lot of people make it out of it, which really is such a, I don't know what to call it, but I don't know if you, not encouragement or comfort, but something that I'm grateful that my daughter did make it out, that we did go and get her and bring her back before anything was able to happen to her. I thank God for that. I'm so grateful for it, because if only 1% to 2% ever make it out of it, yeah, she was probably going to die an early death. So I'm thinking 1% to 2%, and there's still so many that do need the therapy, the trauma therapy, that did get out of it. Then that 1% to 2% is a lot of people. That means that there's a lot more that are in these situations where they are being used for this trade, for this business, locked up in cages like animals, and not just women, but men, children. And so the other way that I think we can prevent this is you have to talk to your child. You have to get inside their head. What could I have done better as a parent to make sure that my daughter would come and talk to me and let me know about her plans? Why didn't she let me know about her plans? Why didn't she feel she could come and talk to me? Now, in the letter she left, she said, I wish that I could come and talk to you. I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to tell you. And I wish I could talk to you the way my brother talks to you. Her older brother talks to me about everything. They're like two total polar opposites. He tells me too much and she doesn't tell me enough. No, I'm grateful that my son talks to me. We're looking for a wife for him. But you need to have that person you can have that intimate talk with, an intimate relationship. Everybody needs that. Why couldn't I be that for my daughter? Why couldn't she feel like she could come and talk to me? Now, this is a two-way street. My daughter was very closed up, and I'm that way too. I'm very quiet. It takes a lot of time to draw things out of a person, to get them to talk. It probably would have took me an hour or 2 hours a day to finally get to my daughter, to know what she was thinking, what she was planning, what was in her head. You need to talk to your children at least on a once a day or every other day basis, even if you just go for a walk, because, a lot of times going for a walk is a lot easier and less awkward than just sitting there staring at each other and trying to figure out what to talk about. You can get outside in the fresh air and just in the sunshine, and things will come to your mind as your blood circulates, and you're walking and you're distracted with that. You can talk. And I just think it's a wonderful way to talk. Great for after dinner, a digestive walk. So, but you've got to get inside your children's head to know what's going on with them. You might not ever know that they were planning this. And another important thing to know is that there are children that I know, more than one, that were in a relationship, where our daughters were in a relationship, had boyfriends, and still this happened to them. So don't think just because your child is in a relationship, oh, my daughter has a boyfriend, don't think that that means that this will not happen. My daughter, someone else's daughter I know, they cut off that relationship to go be with this other person. So you need to know where they're at on the map. Like, you need to know where their plans are, where they're going, what they're thinking. Get inside your child's head, because that's going to give you a good clue as to who is in their head. You need to know what they're thinking. Another thing that makes it hard about trying to do this, about getting in your child's head, is that that other person is in your child's head. And what they are doing is they are trying to cause a divide. In my video about warning signs of predators, this is the number one thing: isolation, causing a divide between you and your family and your friends, the people who love you, that are closest to you, that can help you. They don't want anybody else to be inside your head giving you their thoughts or opinion. They only want what they want you to know and believe in your head. They don't want you to talk to anyone else. So they will isolate you. That's the number one thing. So really, if we could just deal with that one thing, we could prevent, if we can detect and know that this is something that's happening, then once we know that that person is withdrawing from us and isolating, then we can start dealing with healing that, and fixing that problem if we recognize it. And then we can prevent anything else from the relationship further deteriorating with our loved ones, and pull them back in, because that person that's trying to take them from us, that is the number one thing they have to do, is they have to isolate. So we can really forget about all the other things, because they have to do that. Their plan won't work without that. So if we can just prevent that one thing from happening, that isolation, but to prevent that, we have to detect it. And then we have to know how to pull our loved one back in, because what they're going to do, that predator is going to cause division. This is another reason why, going back to why it's hard to get your child to speak to you, why it was hard for me to get my daughter to speak to me. She already had a hard time, being vocalizing her emotions and things like that, or just talking, to me in general, talking to anyone really. Expressing herself and her feelings. So that's number one. But even whenever this person got a hold of her, they caused her to fear me and to hate me. So to be afraid of me, to be angry with me, those two things, it makes it very difficult when this person starts to create this divide. And if you're busy, like I was with work, and you're just not in tune with them, you need like a daily check-in. No matter how busy you are, let's just sit down and check in with each other 5 minutes, if that's all it takes. Because you could probably pick up on a lot of clues in 5 minutes. Very possibly, even if those clues are nothing, even if it's silence, that's a clue. That could be a clue, especially if that person is never silent. If my son was silent, that would be a huge dead giveaway, because he's very talkative. So these are the things that I think that we can do to prevent human trafficking. Number one is awareness, knowing this exists, knowing that it can happen, that it can happen to you. It's not in some other country somewhere. It's not in some far off place. It can happen right now, today, to you, your child right now, whether they're 18, under 18, over 18, if they're living at home with you, or even if they're in their own apartment. Check in with them, because it could be happening right now. Your child could be in a relationship, talking to someone online, even if they have a boyfriend, your daughter, even if your daughter has a boyfriend, they could be talking to someone online right now that is trying to lead them away. If you're noticing that they're withdrawing from you and they're starting to act angry towards you or afraid of you, that is where that person is trying to cause a divide. So being educated on these tactics of the predators, and then getting inside your child's head to know what's going on with them, and then please tell your story if you have been almost led away from your family. There have been people who have almost left and didn't leave. Then there are people like my daughter who did leave but wasn't trafficked, but it was an attempt and it was thwarted. And then there are people who have been trafficked. So there's a progression here. So, hopefully we can catch them before it's too late, before they leave the house. And hopefully they can be educated to know that this is happening to them. You should always just assume, if you're talking to someone online, assume the worst. That way you're going to be safe, and put up those boundaries and precautions. It's understandable that people want to find someone that loves them and cares about them. And there's a broad world out there. Whenever you're online, there's a lot of people out there. And you feel like you're able to find someone that way easier because maybe you're not a social person. But these predators, they look for weak, vulnerable people, or when you're just in a vulnerable state. You might not be a weak, vulnerable person, but you can be in a weak, vulnerable state. We can all get in weak, vulnerable states. So just knowing that, and knowing that when you are talking to someone online, it is a whole lot easier for them to manipulate you, to get you to believe something different about them than what the truth is. And of course, it can happen in real life. People just get abducted and taken and put in a car and, drove off somewhere. That happens. But it's a lot easier for a predator to be more subtle about it. Whenever we were growing up in the 80s, it was, we were told, don't talk to strangers. And we even had a song about it. But now there's, talkwithastranger.com. I mean, we don't tell people that anymore. We feel like the whole world is our friend, and that's not the case. So, also, I would love if you are someone who was in the sex trafficking business, if you were a pimp, if you were a predator, and somehow you have gotten out of that, if your heart was changed and you have been completely turned around to where you are no longer doing that, you've been transformed and you saw the error of your ways and you're no longer in that business, I would love to speak to you. I would love to have you on this show so that you could help us understand the business and how the guys, how they do what they do, the tactics and strategies. And I would just love to, that would be a wonderful way for us to be able to hear the other side. We need to know. These are things we need to know. When I say tell your story, I'm not just talking about the victims. I'm talking about the perpetrators. We would love to hear your story, how you got out of being a perpetrator, why you're no longer a perpetrator. So if you have been a victim, or you've been a previous past perpetrator, or you're not doing that anymore, if you're no longer in the business, on either side, I would love to hear about, so that we can learn more about this business and the strategies. So please let me know. Would love to have you on the show. We need to learn to educate on this. If you are an educator, or you're a therapist, or you work in these areas, I would love to have you on the show to help us to navigate the times that we're living in, and to prevent this from happening to other people. So thank you for watching today. I'll see you in the next video.